All right, everyone, welcome to the next episode here. We've got Angela Phillips, who is the president of Habitat for Humanity in Las Vegas, and in my opinion, knows more about housing and all of the obstacles and hopefully solutions that there are, especially here for Las Vegas and Nevada. This is going to be an incredible conversation. We're going to deep dive into all the problems that we're facing here as a state, and then also, hopefully the way forward. So everyone, welcome Angela. So what drew you to Habitat initially?
So there was multiple things. Before coming to Habitat, I worked for the city of Las Vegas and managing their HUD funding, so housing funding for nonprofits. And I also worked in homelessness. Prior to that, I worked 14 years in foster care and child protective services work. And it just so happened that my mentor was the CEO at Habitat when I was at the government. And, he was someone that believed in me and really helped me evolve my career into what I am today. And so when there was an opportunity to start as director of homeowner services and really evaluate the program and figure out how it can be better and work under my mentor, it just seemed natural to me. So I've been here 8 years, 4 years in this role. And so it's been a really fun journey, but also very eye-opening at the power of Habitat. And I think too, like many people, when I came to Habitat, I didn't really understand what we did. I knew we built homes. Like many others, I thought we gave them away. But that's not actually the business model. We have such a great impact in the community, and so I've learned so much.
So it sounds like you have a very charitable past in your career. Why charity? Why did you get involved in that, and why have you stayed in that?
I've always been someone that is passionate about people and helping others. I grew up in an environment that sometimes was similar to a lot of the clients that I helped when I worked in foster care or CPS. So I resonated with that. But I have also seen the power of change. I've seen people that the community would deem unchangeable, really decide and choose to make an impact and change their lives. Oftentimes people live the way they grew up. It's a cycle. But when you find someone that you resonate with and that sees the true you and believes in you without judgment, that's when the change happens. And so I was lucky to see that many times in my career, and I just continued.
So you've seen change occur through the activities of charity or nonprofit work. You've seen the change. What do you think causes that change to occur? What are shifts in organizations or within individuals themselves that actually allows for the change to unfold, that maybe there was no change for many years? What inspires that change?
The person has to be ready. We can't force someone to change their life, the way of living, the way they parent, any of it, until they're ready. It's very similar when you look at people that have addiction and struggle with addiction. Oftentimes it's a rock bottom or something inside them that sparks the time to change. And sometimes it's not perfect, it's messy. I'm ready to change, I go down the path, maybe I'm getting training or support from someone, and then maybe I'll fall off, but do I choose to get back on? And I think as service professionals or people that work alongside the community and people that won't need to change or want to change, we have to do it and respect their timeline. It's not my timeline. And how do I give them a safe space where they can tell me what their biggest, deepest, darkest fears are, and I can give them the tools without judgment? And sometimes it's even resonating with other people. I think so oftentimes when we are people charged to help the community, sometimes those people we're trying to help think that, we're so much better than them or we've never struggled. And sometimes you just also have to come back down and be like, no, I've struggled, and this is how I've struggled. I understand. It may not be exactly the same, but humanizing things and being there for people at the right time is when I see change happen. But it's really about rapport, respect, and support.
Is there a moment in your life where housing became more than just policy?
Yeah, so I grew up in an environment where in my elementary school years, we moved a lot. Every year, sometimes multiple times a year. So switching schools, things like that. So I was used to that environment. And when I became a parent, I committed that I wasn't going to do that for my children because I knew what that felt like, that instability. And unfortunately, I experienced a divorce at the age of, 27, I think I was, with 2 young children. And I made the decision then that I wasn't going to move their schools. We had owned a home together, and he wasn't going to let me keep it. And so I had to say, how am I going to keep the most stability possible for my kids, also relying solely on my income? And at that time, I was an office assistant. So I was making $11 an hour. And I knew that I couldn't count on him for financial support. So I had to search for housing. And it was very important for me to try and stay in the same area that my kids were already going to school. And so I had to sacrifice other things to do that. We struggled with food. How do I, knowing that my housing costs are taking most of my income, how do I continue to feed my family? And so I had a $100 a month budget on how do I feed all three of us? And so oftentimes I fed them and not myself, or I ate little things. Healthcare. My kids never had health insurance when they were little, when I was single by myself. I didn't qualify for Medicaid because I made too much money, which a lot of people experience today. And so, but I also couldn't sacrifice that income to be able to pay for housing. And so my kids, when they got sick, I had to evaluate, is it sick enough to take them to a doctor? And if so, I tapped into many of the health centers that are here in the community. I've lived here almost my entire life. And so I went to sliding fee scale clinics when they needed it. I just figured it out. And so, it was a period of time that we struggled, but my kids didn't know we struggled. I did everything I could to shield them. But to me, that's why I know the importance of housing and how having a stable payment, monthly payment for housing can really impact a family. We see so many people in our community right now talking about, okay, if my housing costs have to take 60 to 70% of my income, I have to sacrifice other things. I've lived in that life. And now I'm a homeowner. So again, it's different. So it's come full circle for me. But, I think some of those experiences that I experience makes me better at what I do.
You relate to it more.
Yes.
Stability is what I think you've keyed in on is the most important thing for housing. Housing is a foundation for much of life. What keeps you up at night as the president of the organization?
How are we going to keep doing this?
Yeah.
With the rising costs to build, the lack of land and opportunity, and also, again, running a nonprofit isn't easy, particularly even in economic times. We rely on companies to help fund us, government funding, right? All the different avenues, individuals. And so when the strain is being felt by even wealthy people, giving goes down. Companies making decisions about budgets and how to conserve money when things are going up, right? The cost of labor is going up, goods are going up. And so that impacts my business. And so for me, it's like, how do I continue to be able to give the gift of home ownership to people, knowing that I have all those constraints and things that are coming at us? And so that's what I lose sleep at night.
That's a lot. When you look at housing right now in Las Vegas, what concerns you most?
The biggest concern for us right now is land, especially, again, being a nonprofit developer. There, you can drive through the different neighborhoods. Maybe you'll find certain little pockets of land that's open and no one's developing on, but there's not enough, right? Why aren't people developing on it? If a private developer isn't developing, I sometimes go, well, how am I going to do that? Competing, right, for land that is good land. That's the other thing with us in particular. Oftentimes when we have land opportunities, it's the land in the areas that people don't want to build on.
Yep.
And so, it's supply and demand too. We were just looking at a piece of land the other day, and it's like the person bought it for $160,000 last year, and now they're selling it for $400,000. Like, what? And so how do we continue to do what we do when it's just getting to cost more and more and there's less funding to fund it?
How do we fix the land issue?
I think it's multifaceted. I think it's people really understanding what the problem is.
What is the problem?
Like I said, supply and demand, market rate, not being able to compete. Also, when you see private home builders not being able to pencil out projects, as they call it, how the heck are we going to do that, right? And so we need to release more land, more of the federal land that's available. Our local jurisdictions need to put in more requests because there is a percentage of that land that can be used for affordable housing development, but they have to submit a request to the BLM to get it released. And so the only way to make the land portion of development more affordable is to have opportunities and ways to build on it and access it. Because all it does is hurt the consumer. Whether you're an affordable housing developer, a for-profit housing developer, whoever your end customer is, a homeowner, a renter, it makes the price unaffordable and they can't afford it. So we have to do something.
Yep. So if land is $1 million an acre, you can't put affordable homes on it.
No.
What is affordable housing in your eyes, and what do most people, at least in the government side, consider affordable housing?
So affordable housing by definition is that it's housing that a person can live in where they spend less than 30% of their income on housing.
Okay.
So that is the metric.
Okay.
If you can operate a program or deliver rent or mortgage under 30% of someone's income, it's considered affordable. A lot of people don't realize that. The standard, though, because in a lot of programs and opportunities, that's unheard of, because like the average Habitat homeowner mortgage payment is $469 a month. That includes taxes, insurance, and principal. Why? Because the people we serve, we have to make sure it's no more than 30% of their income, right?
Yep.
Can a for-profit developer do that? Probably not. That makes no sense for them, business-wise, right?
Yep.
They lose too much money. So the standard is, could we get it to no more than 50% of their income, right? And so that's the next benchmark. But 1 in 6 Nevadans are spending more than 50% of their income on housing, right? And so, now what you'll hear is attainable housing. Attainable housing is a new concept that's been defined by AB 540, and that is serving people up to 150% area median income, whereas affordable housing traditionally is targeted to 30 to 80% area median income.
So you said something that I think is just so powerful about Habitat for Humanity. The average mortgage here in Las Vegas is $460 a month, all in. And right now we're experiencing mortgages for the median home of $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 people are paying to get into housing right now in Las Vegas. They can't buy a home anywhere close to the mortgage payment that you're talking about. So Habitat has provided a solution to affordable housing and can scale. We're just limited in our ability to do so by things like land and other regulatory issues. If you had a silver bullet and you said this one thing would change housing so much, here in Nevada specifically, what would it be, and what would you want to see? What would be the one thing that would change the most so that we could provide, as an organization, more affordable housing to the city or the state?
Again, I think it has to be land, but it has to be earmarked land, specific for affordable housing, specific to nonprofit developers. Because if we're showing up to the same BLM auction, we're showing up to the same piece of land, that person that's selling it, of course, wants to make the most money off of it. How are we chosen? But then that means the only way we can be chosen is to be able to access money and funding. But I already said our donor base are also feeling the strain. So I don't have the capital, I don't have the money. And our business doesn't operate the same way as a private developer, in terms of financing and selling the homes. Even just our model in terms of how we sell homes is so different. And so we can't even compete. And so, I think land has to be part of the solution. The reality is construction costs, even for a nonprofit developer like us, to get subcontractors to want to come out and bid our homes. I mean, let's be real. I don't think terribly of the subcontractors that's like, I can go over here and make $1 million off this project, or 20,000 off Habitat's project. I mean, it's resources. I run a business. This is what nonprofit is. And so I don't fault them. It makes sense. I would probably do the same if that was my purpose. but my purpose is different. And so how do nonprofit affordable housing developers that provide all types of housing become competitive? The only way is if it becomes part of policy. It becomes part of things that jurisdictions have to comply by, whether it's state imposed or locally imposed. I mean, you hear about it in other cities, like in California, where a portion of new development has to be set aside for affordable housing. Unfortunately, we're to the point where more drastic legislation has to be put out for affordable housing. Attainable housing is great. There's a population and a consumer for that. But we can't forget the people that can't afford housing every day.
So what's a policy that lawmakers or people who can get the word out to lawmakers and representatives, what would be a policy that would impact Nevada in a powerful way and move the needle? What would be something in terms of land set aside, a certain percentage? What would you think would be a good policy?
Well, one of the things I always say about Nevada that bothers me, because I do advocacy and I am on different policy working groups. Where's the database that outlines all the housing policy? Where can I go and say, these are all the housing policies that are currently in statute that haven't been touched in 50 years, that maybe are even selecting people out of the process because we don't even know they exist. And so I say it every time I go into a room and say, where's the policy database? I would love to change policy, but how do I know what I need to change, right? So there's that. We need a better system to educate ourselves on what exists, and we don't have that right now. So what everyone always says is go onto the legislative website and search that.
Okay.
I'm someone that works in this field, and I think I'm decently smart. But if I go on there and I can't read and understand the stuff that I'm reading on there, how is everyone else going to know what to advocate for, right? And so that's one issue. So I continually say we need this. But I do think in order to make an impact on affordable housing, there does have to be an earmark for developers, like I mentioned. I think there was some, headway in terms of permitting time and fees, again, in AB 540. So there's little things that are happening, but how do we really know what is a barrier if we don't really have an idea of what exists? And so, again, I think as all of us, I was in a room the other day about policy for the next legislative session, and not everyone is a nonprofit developer. Some are for-profit developers, but we're all saying the same thing. Land is part of the problem. They're shouting it from the rooftops.
Land is the issue.
How do we do it? Because what people don't also realize, the more it costs to purchase the land, to staff the construction sites, whether it's subcontractors or employees, the materials, everything goes into what the consumer is going to pay.
So we're going to go off a little bit of what I anticipated, because I think you keep coming back to land. I know it's land. Land is the issue. And I'm going to share an experience that I had in the real estate industry, and now I'm experiencing it with legislators as well. And so in the real estate industry, years and years ago, I was saying land should be our most important issue that we're advocating for. We should be lobbying and advocating around our ownership of land here in Nevada and taking back control from the federal government about 10 years ago. I was probably the first one to come out and say something like this. And so I thought the path would be real estate, and I would get everyone on board. We're a huge association. We can move the needle. And so I got on my local Board of Real Estate PAC. I did the state PAC. I was all in. I was in the rooms talking to the right people and making all the connections. And when we talked about federal land and us trying to get ownership, everyone said, well, it's not our issue. We focus on state stuff. We can't manage the federal stuff. We're a state association. The federal stuff we have to leave up to the National Association of Realtors. So we can tell them that we care about it, and they'll go out and advocate for us, but really it's a national issue, and we can't really do much with it. We can focus on state level issues. So I was like, okay. So then I go to the national, And I start talking to them, and they go, well, it's a state level issue. We need to understand what the state wants first. And so they kept passing the buck back and forth. And no one wanted to take a stance or fight the machine that controls this. No one wanted to do it. And they kept passing the buck back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to get a result in the real estate industry. I'm going to change course. I'm going to start talking to the legislators directly. And we just talked to legislators directly. Mm-hmm. And since our meetings, I've also continued to talk to legislators directly. And I'm experiencing the same thing again, where our representatives are passing the buck back and forth to each other. The national level is saying the Clark County Commission needs to take responsibility, and they're the ones who told us what land they want, and then we put that in the federal bill and we voted on it, or we're trying to get it voted on. And then the local people are saying, oh no, this is a federal issue because it's a federal lands bill. So the federal government has to address it on the federal side. And so they're either not communicating with each other, which I doubt, or they're passing the buck and working on a system that I don't think is going to be of benefit to the people of Nevada and Las Vegas. I think that there is heavy control from lobbyists representing certain organizations. Mm-hmm. I think that new home builders benefit greatly from the lands bill that was presented in Congress because it's limited amount of land made available over decades. And so when limited amount of land is made available and it goes to the highest bidder, they get to sell high dollar homes that they build on that land. They get to make their margins over and over and over again. And it's restricted supply. It's a government restricted supply of land over many decades. And so they have essentially a monopoly on development. And the development that's going to occur is going to be expensive. It's not going to be affordable. It's going to be all the new homes that we're seeing built that are $700,000, $800,000, $900,000, $2 million. It's not going to be affordable housing. So the new home builders are benefiting greatly from it. So my concern is that the lobbying that's taking control of this issue has its tentacles in, and that both the county side and the national side are influenced heavily by the moneyed interest groups. And the people of Las Vegas, the people of Nevada, are greatly disadvantaged by this, and we're losing our voice. I think our land is our power. I think it's our future destiny. And as long as our representatives are not fighting for us to have control of our land, and a lot of our land, we're going to continue to lose our power and influence to moneyed interests, and I don't think it's a good thing. So we need to change course. I think people need to start taking responsibility, and I think that this issue should be at the forefront of everyone's mind in the state of Nevada, especially in Las Vegas. Over 90% of our land is owned by the federal government in southern Nevada, and we cannot develop on it, and they're trying to conserve even more. And so I think go out and fight for your land, and let's try and make sure that we impact affordable housing and get some land earmarked for affordable housing.
One of the most frustrating things that it's not a new story. First of all, you always see, well, it's not my area, it's not this, right? I think that's a common practice in a lot of things. Business, or how many times have you been in a business and something goes wrong and it's like, not me, it's that person, right? And so I think that's natural for people to do, but in order to create change, we all need to do something different. And so earlier when we started, and I was talking about how I've seen change occur within people and humans in their life, I think we all need to reflect on ourselves and our businesses, in the way we operate as humans, and be different. And stop saying it's not my job, it's that person's responsibility. Land in Nevada is everyone's responsibility. It's not just the federal government, it's not just nonprofit, it's not just local jurisdictions, it's not just the state. The only way we are going to change something is if all of us do something different, because what we've been doing is not working. But we all need to own our responsibility. If as a collective we can say, I'm willing to do X, okay, then I'll do Y, and we can all band together and actually do something, that's when the change is going to happen. It's no different as a human. None of us like change. How many people do you know that go, I love when my life changes. I love when management changes at work. I love when something changes in my home life. None of us, right? It's scary, we don't like it, it's uncomfortable. But I gotta say, if you reflect on your life and every major change that's ever occurred, it sucked in the time, it was scary, you didn't know how you were gonna do it. But how many of those changes can you look back now that you're far removed and go, that was life-changing? That's what really changed. And so I've said this before, and sometimes again, I don't always say the things that people always want me to say, but I was on a panel about housing. And I said, if we have one more roundtable to talk about what the problem in housing is and the solutions we need to come up with, and we have a meeting and we sit around and we get everyone's feedback and we put together a document, but nothing happens. Why? Because no one owns it. Who says, I've been at many meetings where it's like, okay, we have our next steps, blah, blah, blah. Who's going to take the lead? And everyone's like, not me. And I say, do not invite me to another strategy session to talk about how to solve housing. We know how to solve housing. Let's solve it. Let's do something different than we have before. Because all we're doing is hurting other people and the people in this community. Because the other message I hear is people can't afford housing because employers don't pay them enough. Okay? So then we're passing the buck to the business side. Yep. That we need to pay our employees more and a livable wage. Listen, just like everyone else, I understand we have to pay employees more to live. But if the business side, the people that are building the housing, the industries that are directly impacting people's day-to-day lives, if it's okay for them to continue to increase prices and price people out of things, then we're saying, well, the businesses need to pay everyone more. 100%. I think I just saw something that says we have the least, in terms of wages and professions, we're at the bottom. Surprise, not really surprised. We're at the bottom for a lot of things. We don't pay the same wages. But to say a business that's also struggling with getting goods to sell in their stores, to have adequate staffing for the consumer, to say then that they also have to now pay more, but then it puts strains on their business, which then ultimately impacts their employees, like that's not fair either. All the sectors need to come together and do something.
So you said you've experienced change occur in an organization or towards a certain effort. What would you say needs to happen for all of these different entities to come together? What needs to occur so that the environment for that change to prosper within happens?
You need to have someone that will lead the disruption.
Okay.
So one of the things I've seen here, again, I've worked in nonprofit almost my whole career, but we always have really smart people come from other states and run a sector.
Yeah.
Whether it's
GEA, our development authority, and they're always from out of state.
A university or whatever. And I've been at so many keynotes where you have like a new leader for a business saying, this is what we did in our community and this is possible, blah, blah, blah. How many of those people actually stay here? 3 years, 3 to 5, they're like, peace out, I'm gone. Why?
100%.
Because we do not let people create change.
Okay.
We are the barrier because we're not all honest with them. Okay. We're not all real. So in order to make something happen, I think we need all the decision makers in a room.
Okay.
Put down the swords and let's just talk real.
Okay.
I'm Angela working at blah, 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 blah. This is my biggest barrier to solve this.
Yeah.
Okay? But here's the thing that's creating the challenge for me. I would love to hear, does anyone have any input into how I can change it? Be vulnerable enough to hear it. Because a lot of people don't say the things that are in their head for fear of judgment, for fear of being, not smart enough or whatever the case may be. Maybe they can't because of media and different things like that. And I'm saying, sit in a room, no one else in there. Lay down the swords and say, these are my problems and this is why I can't fix this. But I bet you the other people in the room either experience the same problem or have overcome it. But until we're honest and vulnerable and real, we're never going to find the solutions and commit. We have to commit. We have to say, me as X, Y, and Z company, I've always done this, but the only way to change it is we need to do something completely different.
Okay. So you said you need a disruptor who's going to change the environment and bring everyone together. Who in the state of Nevada is going to do that?
I don't know. I haven't met that person yet. That's a problem. Again, we still have our guards up. I think if we're really smart, only because I've seen it, right? We would need someone we trust, right? So you and I have talked a lot about trust and about what makes me put my guard down in Habitat. Having people that I align with, that I fully trust, that have a different mindset than me, but have also experienced successes, right, in different areas, right? So maybe we need someone, one of those disruptors or people that come from another state that is totally revamped their housing system to come here and say the things, say it, but also be able to back and be like, this is what we've done. We've seen the success. It was not overnight. Set realistic goals. If we did X, Y, and Z things, but then that person needs to be willing to hear why us as Las Vegans or Nevadans don't think that will work, because that will be our automatic response. That won't work because. And then that person needs to hear all of our fears, process those, but say, is that just a fear, or are you confident it's not going to work? So let's start taking little steps to start creating a bigger plan. Okay? But they need to say, but you need to be committed 10, 15 years. We got to understand, change does not happen overnight, especially housing change, right? It's not like it's a small thing that we're creating. But we have to be committed. If we stay on this path, but we also evaluate the losses, because not every idea is going to be a successful one. But we have to be able to say, we tried this idea, it didn't work. What was the problem? And pivot. Or this is really successful. It didn't have the result we wanted, but this is successful. But also talk to the consumers directly who are being affected by it and say, how are you feeling, right? But it needs to be a continuous conversation and real vulnerable conversation of wins and losses. But also understand it's the long game. If we can understand that, if we can commit to the long game, that's when change will happen. Change is not instant.
The long game is tough. How has housing changed in the last 10 to 15 years in your eyes?
I mean, from what I can see, even just listening to some of the stats you've said, like there was a point where we were building housing, right? And we're going to have an overabundance of housing, and then we had to pause and stop, right? And then we never kind of regained that traction. I remember, so I live up in the Northwest. I moved into Providence when it was first being built, like 2007. And it was like, I loved it because there was no housing developments up there. But there was construction going on all around me. And I was like, ooh, this is interesting. And I still live up there. And for a while, it was like dead. Like it was just all these half-completed construction projects. Nothing was being built. And so that was the slowdown. And then now, Providence is built, and now they have Sky Canyon, and now they're going to have something else, right? And so I think that pause really hurt us. But also what that pause created was the cost has went up. I always say, if I could have been a Habitat in like 2010, 2011, we were building homes for $60,000. Now I'm building a house for $275,000 because all I dream of is, do you know what I could do if it cost me $60,000?
I know.
Do you know how much I could scale?
I know.
Because one of the things that people think, the reason why Habitat doesn't do more in the community is that we don't have the skill set. We don't know how to do it. I can build homes. My barriers are land, and then how do I fund it? And again, I rely on the community to fund our projects. You know, it's philanthropy that funds the projects. And as the projects get more expensive, the more I have to go and say, well, I need more money.
Right.
But it's easier for someone to wrap their head around, I can fund 5 food bags for a family for $5, but if I give you $30,000, it doesn't really cover even one house. No, it doesn't. It's like a door, some windows. And so for people, that's not big enough.
Yep.
But a food bag, and I can say this because I worked at a food pantry, is a Band-Aid to a bigger problem. Of course I want people to be fed. But unless we address the underlying problem, that food bag isn't going to make the impact, whereas a home is life-changing.
That's exactly how I feel about affordable renting. I think that the system in affordable renting is you develop this property, and for the next 10 or 15 years, it's mandated that it's affordable for the community. But then after that, it opens back up to the marketplace in many cases.
So a lot of jurisdictions to overcome that are putting in restrictions. So it needs to be 99-year affordable. The other thing that a lot of people don't realize with affordable rental that is subsidized is the rent payments are not stable. They change every year. They're changed by the federal government based on your market and your area median income and costs. So even if someone's in an affordable rental unit is subsidized by funding, government funding, their rent is not the same for every year they live in the house. It changes every year based on a formula that the federal government gives out, and their income is reevaluated every year. So if that person, when they moved in, let's say they were working in a job and they were making $14 an hour. But in that year, maybe they got an opportunity. Maybe they got a promotion. Maybe they switched jobs and now they're making $18 an hour, which still maybe qualifies them under low to moderate income to be an affordable rental. But their rent is then going to change because now they're making more income because they can pay more. And remember, the formula is not 30% of someone's income everywhere. Some places it's 50. But what we do, because we do home ownership, not only do we build the home, we're the mortgage lender, we are qualifying people where they are at the time that they purchase their home. That is their mortgage payment. The only thing that can make their mortgage payment fluctuate is property tax that goes up based on Clark County's assessments, right? And homeowners insurance, right? But the actual core of their payment will stay the same because the point of home ownership is generational wealth and opportunity. When someone has that stability, you want them to be able to then focus on their career, their kids to get a better education. I want our families to go back to school. We've had families become nurses and advance their careers. We want them to become in management and leadership. Oftentimes, people can't even focus at work because they don't know, their home life is so unstable. So when you give them that foundation of stability, they then can be better performers at work because some of that stress is relieved. And so with like our program, the payment doesn't change. I have homeowners that bought their house 20 years ago and the core of their mortgage payment is the same. The only thing that changes are the things I can't control for them. Right? So whether they're the next president or CEO of a company, they were given that opportunity to have a stable home, which then gave them the ability to advance in their careers. And that's how you create wealth.
Yeah, I mean, you have safer communities, you have better home life, you have more hope for the future. There's so many ethereal things to it as well that are of benefit to owning a home and having a stable payment and knowing where your next 10, 15, 20 years are going to be. I look at housing mostly on the supply side. And so I think that subsidizing the housing market through affordable renting and other avenues is beneficial. But again, I think that it's mostly a Band-Aid. I think that we need more supply. So when you reference some of the stats, in Las Vegas, we were building 25 to 30,000 new homes per year in the early 2000s. When the collapse happened in housing, we went to building 5,000 homes per year. And then we did 6,000, 7,000, and we got all the way up to 8,000, 9,000 homes per year. But again, those homes that were being constructed, especially in most recent years, are 700, 800 plus thousand. No one's rebuilding a $250,000 house, a $350,000 house, a $400,000 house. Those new homes aren't coming to market. They're not being constructed. So every affordable home in Las Vegas is not being reintroduced to the market. And if it is, it's like tiny levels, tiny levels. So all the available inventory of existing homes that are quote unquote affordable or even attainable is disappearing. Investors bought a large portion of it. And so people are saying, well, should we go after the investors? Or what's the other solution? It's allow for more building to occur. If you had 100,000 more units built in Las Vegas, we wouldn't have to worry about ownership or ownership labels being if the investors own them or not. We'd have so much more inventory available, and hopefully there would be a portion of it that is affordable and or attainable. We need more supply at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's a housing continuum. That's what people need to realize. Every person is at a different point in that housing journey. It's one of the things I said from the beginning when I came to Habitat. The focus was rental, because that was the quickest. And people need homes, right? But once you get people into rental, why do they have to stay there? If we remove the ability for people to buy homes because it's unaffordable, those people will stay in rental. So it impacts generational wealth, their children, different things like that. Landlords can decide they no longer want to be landlords, all of those things, rental increases. But if we can provide an opportunity for people that are in rental to move into home ownership, those units open for the next person that can take the opportunity, right? And so, that's the thing. From homelessness all the way to the end, we need opportunities in every area because all of us switch from opportunity. A lot of our homeowners through Habitat, some of them, it's not even that they don't have the income to buy a home. Where our program is beneficial, we extend 0% interest loans. And as we know, interest can really make a home housing payment go up, right? Some of our homeowners can actually qualify for one of our loans at the full value with 0% interest. The other difference is they don't have to come up with a down payment through Habitat. Their sweat equity, they help build their home, their neighbor's home, they get financial education, first-time home buyer classes. So we remove a down payment requirement and we remove the interest. And they can actually make a $1,300 home mortgage payment and own a home, right? So then a lot of them are moving out of the affordable rentals, which then opens space for the next person to come in. Because the other thing is we are short 80,000 units for extremely low income people, okay? Why? Because there's everyone else sitting in the middle that don't have an opportunity to move up into the housing spectrum.
Right.
So if there's no opportunity, everything gets stuck over here.
100%.
And so we need to build more housing. We need to build different kinds of housing. The last couple of years, this is the first times I've ever even heard home ownership be part of the conversation.
And we provide at Habitat home ownership for less than people would pay in rent.
$1 million, yeah.
So not only do you get to eventually own a home, you could do so for less than you're paying for rent in Las Vegas, which is astonishing to me.
Yeah.
And I think the point that you just made is probably the most critical thing in looking at this from a policy side is if all you're doing is creating inventory for this one stage, it creates a backlog in that one stage. So everyone who is not up to that stage yet now is fighting to get to that stage, and there's limited inventory only in this stage because the next stage doesn't exist. It's not being built. It's not being constructed. It literally does not exist. So as people would naturally advance or change, life events occur, they're not able to go into that next stage, which then drives up the cost of this stage. So now rental becomes more unaffordable over time because there is that backlog and the supply is so restricted.
Supply and demand.
Because there's way more demand for that stage than there should be. What should happen is that the supply evens out and it gets spread over into this next stage, and it's a more even market. But as you overly subsidize just this one stage and completely neglect the next stage, you create such a terrible market where rents are driven up, and then ownership becomes completely unaffordable for most people. And that's the dynamics that we're living in right now.
The other thing I think we need to do as a community, as home builders, as government, is we need to change our mindset into the types of housing we have in the community. Because it's single family homes, apartments, okay? But other communities are doing townhomes and attached homes, because every area is called something different, tiny homes to, even, again, there's habitats that are doing condos for home ownership, right? Because the reality is our land issue, ours is a little different because, again, you fly in on a plane, you see all this open land, and you're like, why isn't that built, right? But think about San Francisco, New York, places where, where are you even building it? It's so dense, right? So you have to pivot and think differently. And as the consumer or the person that maybe wants to buy a home one day, if I was in those shoes, I have to go, maybe my idea of home ownership needs to change for right now. It can't be the single family, home that we all envision from our childhoods, right? Because it's so unaffordable. But if I could even get into a condo that's affordable, or a townhome, or a smaller home as my entry-level home,
stage.
Yeah, because even at Habitat, people think, can someone sell a home? Sometimes when people ask a Habitat home, when people ask me that question, I'm like, is this, okay, what kind of answer are they looking for? And my answer is yes. Why can't they sell their Habitat home? Of course, we have restrictions and rules and things like that. And just like any other home, they have to pay back portions from their proceeds. And right, that's the point of home ownership. I think people sometimes expect me to say, no, they must stay there. But I'm sorry, as we evolve as people, humans, our lives, we have to have the ability to move. What if a Habitat homeowner gets a job opportunity in another state? I can't be like, sorry, you can't sell your Habitat home, you're stuck. Yep. Or maybe the neighborhood they live in with the Habitat home, maybe they want to move somewhere else. That's the point of home ownership. To take equity and invest in something better.
Yep.
Right? And so we do need more entry-level homes, but we need to change what our mindset and picture of that is. Because that's the other thing we have. When we open our homeownership application, we say, these are the homes we're building. They are smaller. They are attached. They're 800 square feet. But they meet the need of where our community is and our consumer is. And so you have to know that when you're going in and applying for a Habitat home.
So we were talking about the different stages, and I have a personal story with that. My great-grandmother bought a house here in Las Vegas when she moved here. So I'm fourth generation, and she purchased a home that was 800 square feet. It was 2 bedrooms. It had a living room, a little dining area, kitchen, and backyard, and multiple generations of our family grew up there, so to speak. And she came from the Dust Bowl in the Great Depression. She came from nothing. Her family was as poor can be. So when she moved here and she was able to purchase a home, it was a huge achievement between her and her husband. And what happened from that is, over the course of generations, our family has been able to progressively achieve the American dream. She had a little home. In that little home, she raised my grandfather. My grandfather had my mother when he was 17 years old. He was in high school. on his senior prom night. My grandmother was 15. That home was their foundation. They eventually went out and got their own home as well. My mom raised in my great-grandmother's home too, while they were out working. I was raised in my great-grandmother's home many times after school because she would pick me up. She would watch me, and I would play, and my sister would play there until my parents were off work, or she would take us back home. That's where we grew up. It was the foundation. And so over the course of generations, that little tiny 800 square foot home has been the foundation for our family and for us developing and becoming better and better and better. And I would say that I'm as successful as I am because she got that start. And so when you're talking about different products that are available in terms of housing and zoning and regulations and things like that, we might look down at an 800 square foot starter home right now. But my experience with the 800 square foot starter home is that it was the foundation for my family here in Las Vegas. And that generations have built wealth and family and community and connectivity all from that home base. And so I think it's disappointing that we look down on smaller homes that could be the foundation on which generations from now, those kids get to look back and say, thank you, great-grandma, great-granddad, for doing what you did and starting there, because you've allowed for me now to have a better opportunity in life.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think we all have our own perception of what we need or what we want. Like who I am today and what I would want in a home is very different than when I told the story earlier when I first got divorced. Like I moved into the smallest apartment I could find that just was enough space for each of my kids to have a bed, and we had a bathroom. We didn't even have furniture. I didn't care because it was a place that I could be, that I could afford, and give my kids stability. What I would have given to be able to buy a home after that, no matter how small. Again, we often operate in where we are now. But if we think about where we came from or before struggles, or even, again, the people we serve, I look at all the time, like the areas of town we build in and all of those different things. And maybe I wouldn't want to live there, but it doesn't mean someone else wouldn't want to live there, right? And so we have to be open-minded, and we can't always assume that how we feel is how everyone else feels. And so that's where it also goes back to asking people. I had a situation with a homeowner. We had her in the office not that long ago, and her home is in the historic West Side because we've built 67 homes over there, MLK, D Street area, right? Long time ago. And, you know, I had her in the office. She had bought her house 15 years ago, and I said, you know, we may have some opportunity in that area. How would you feel, you know, now that you've lived there all that time, if we built more homes? I think it's great. I was fine because it was also where I was used to living. Because that's the other thing. We always think that people want to move out of certain areas, but when it's your own comfort zone and what you know, that's tend to be where you want to stay. So again, talking to her and, you know, hearing how her kids grew up in that area and the schools and the community that's built, because a lot of people that have lived there for a really long time in that area, it then changed my mindset in terms of where does Habitat need to build, right? Where is the right environment? And that's why, again, as part of our process, we say, this is where we're building, this is the product we're building, because then people have a choice.
So what
do
are the
I want
biggest,
that or do I not?
What are the biggest misconceptions about Habitat for Humanity?
We give homes away.
And
Number one.
What's the truth?
We do not give homes away. Like I said, we are a mortgage lender. We sell the homes to a homeowner, and they pay an affordable mortgage payment. So it is not free, because part of, you know, multiple reasons, you want people to have investment to what they're getting. A lot of people think by being handed things, some people have less value in that, right? So if we were just handing houses away, chances are people wouldn't take care of them. right? And so that's why the tenet of what we do is sweat equity. People are putting their time and volunteer
How
time
much sweat
and
equity?
energy. So for a single person, it's 300 hours of sweat equity that they have to do in 6 months. So when they get selected for a Habitat home, they have to commit to that.
Yep.
And so they're building their homes in their neighbor's home. I mean, from the point of they're hammering the nails into the frame, they're painting, they're going on the roof, they're doing all the things, because then they're more likely to take care of it. And so it gives them that investment into their future and the pride. I have built this. One of the things I love so much on the Habitat construction site, because we're building a street right now. So we've already built 9 homes on the street. We're building the final 5 homes now. And we have companies come out and volunteer with us. And a lot of times they're returning companies. And what I love is, let's say a company comes out and half the team had built with us before and the others haven't. I love when the people that have been out there with us was like, I helped build that house right there. How is so-and-so? And what I also love is when that homeowner comes out and there's like this reunion. It's community. And so people feel pride in terms of giving your time and efforts to build something. And so for our homeowners, that home that they're living in, they have literally given their time, energy, and sweat to build it. And so they're more likely to have pride in homeownership, take care of it. And it's seen, you know, our very first homeowner still lives in her house. We built in 1991. She raised generations there. That's amazing.
Yep. And Habitat also offers financial education, right?
Yeah. So not only for Habitat homeowners, obviously as part of their sweat equity, get financial education. And we've always done that as part of our program. But during the pandemic, we stayed open in the office. And so many people we saw that were working in sectors that they thought their jobs were safe, right? As we all do. If you work in construction, casino, different things like that, you think, you're equipped, because that's never going to end in Las Vegas. But during the pandemic, when so many people were affected by that, we were getting calls from people trying to tap into social service programming that they've never had before. And so I got some money from the Engelstad Family Foundation and did a pilot of our financial education courses that we were already providing to the community and offered them for free. And so because of that success of that pilot project, we now offer free financial education courses in English and Spanish to people in the community.
How many people per year?
80.
80?
Yep.
What's the demand for houses when people apply? How many applications does Habitat receive each year?
So because of all the fair lending laws and things we have to comply with, we can't have a waiting list. So no one can ever be on a waiting list for Habitat. Everything needs to be equal and fair at all times. And so we have an interest list where people can go on our website, put their name and information into our database, and be notified when a Habitat application opens. We have over 6,000 people on that interest list.
So we could be servicing 6,000 people
Potentially.
at a minimum.
Those are people that have an interest and understand the value of home ownership and know that there's a Habitat here, right? Because one of the biggest struggles we also have is a lot of people don't realize there's a Habitat for Humanity here.
Yeah.
And so it's my mission to change that. But if more people knew, that interest list would be so much more. And so, yeah, there's a huge demand. A lot of people, the people that get chosen, like right now we're building 5 homes. So you go from 6,000 people that are interested to 300 people, that get to go to the orientation, but really 900 applications are downloaded. It's a whole process. And then 5, we can do so much more with opportunity. Opportunity is always the key word there. But the people that get selected, I mean, they always say it's a gift from God. It's life-changing.
Is there a story, a homeowner story that has stuck with you that you find to be the most powerful or most meaningful or most impactful on you?
Yeah, so for me, when I came to Habitat, again, when I mentioned earlier, I'm used to working more with families in crisis, people experiencing homelessness, people losing their children, being reunited with their children. And so prior to coming to Habitat, I was used to working with a different clientele of people to help. And so when I came to Habitat, I was excited for to learn new things, right? It's a different construction, mortgage lending, working with a population that could be successful homeowners is different than what I was used to. And so I struggled for like the first year, trying to figure out if it was the right place for me. And I came in at a time where a lot of things needed to be revamped for Habitat to make it better. And so I was feeling very motivated by that, but I still struggled with not being able to interface with the people every single day, helping people in terms of crisis, because that's what I was used to. And so I remember my very first home dedication at Habitat. It was a road to get there. It took a year to get everything sorted out and get the processes figured out and who was getting those homes and all of that. But at the very first home dedication, it was Tiffany's house. Tiffany and her 8-year-old son at the time were living in her parents' house, but they were sleeping in the laundry room because there weren't enough space and room in the house. And her son did suffer from severe asthma, and her mom was a smoker. And so, the environment, not only were they living sharing a laundry room, but also the air quality and things were affecting her son's asthma. And she was one of the homeowners that we had to have a lot of conversations as we prepared for her getting her house because the process was frustrating for her. But I can remember the moment that she was handed the keys to her Habitat home. And so during our home dedications, it's a special day just for that homeowner. And, we present the keys. And I can remember the CEO at the time handing Tiffany the keys to the house. And I'm an observer. I watch people. And I can remember that moment after she got the keys. She took a deep breath and went, and that was a moment for her, a moment of relief. A moment that she didn't have to worry. You got to remember, even though she was living in her mother's house, she was a guest in her mother's house. It was not hers. And so now she had an opportunity to move into a house with her son and have full control over the housing environment, the furniture, where people slept, the memories that were created. And so when I saw that sigh of relief, and I just got goosebumps again because I do every time I tell this story, that's the moment I realized the life-changing impact of a stable home, but one that you own. She no longer has to worry that her rent's going to go up. She no longer has to worry, can she come up with a deposit to move into her apartment? And so from that moment, I knew I was in the place I needed to be. And I had seen that story multiple times over because 70% of our Habitat homeowners are single moms.
Wow.
And again, I was a single mom that struggled. And so I also understand that feeling that Tiffany had that day. And it hit me. And that's when I knew I had to do more.
So Habitat has a huge impact on the city and could have an even bigger impact on the city. What is someone that is listening to this can do to help bring about change in housing or to impact Habitat for Humanity in a positive way?
One, realize that even if you're not directly impacted by housing, someone around you is, okay? I have children that are now adults that may never be able to purchase a home and have the opportunity that I have. So first we have to look inward and say, how can I help something that maybe doesn't directly impact me, but it impacts others? And being honest and realistic. We all need to advocate. We all need to take the information that we've learned and go to the decision makers and help them understand the way things are now is not okay, and we need to band together to change it. Housing is a movement right now. So we all need to realize that it's important, because if we don't change it now, we can't risk 10 more years of this how it is.
What would you tell someone who is frustrated with the system and the fact that housing is becoming so unaffordable for so many people?
I would tell someone not to lose confidence, not to lose hope. Okay? Find someone that aligns with your views. Go talk to people. That's what I do. I go around, when I first got this position, I went around to all the elected officials, all the different staff. I found people that worked in housing. And I found the people that aligned with me and understood and really seemed like they wanted to do something. And those are the people I aligned myself with. And so any opportunity to be in a room with them, to support the messaging, I'm there. And so find people that are passionate about it and start taking the steps. Reach out to us. Reach out to you or me. Call me. Stop by Habitat. I'm happy to come alongside people that want to create change. But I think we need to stop being silent. For a long time, I was a person that was like, well, we hear this all the time, like, I'm just one person. Can I create change? Now, the policymakers are going to do whatever they want. It doesn't matter what I say. But I think we're seeing in today's environment that can be different if we all come together and start pushing the message in a collective. Okay? Even if you think housing and the changes in housing maybe doesn't directly align with what you and I say, but if you have an understanding of why housing is important and how it's affected you and an idea to change it, bring that up, even if it's not the same. The more people talking about it, the more attention it's going to get. And eventually they have to listen to us because the reality is it is a crisis. We were talking about housing right before COVID was hitting. That was the first time where housing was part of the conversation in this community. And then COVID happened. And it stopped because COVID changed our lives for 2-3 years, right? But guess what? COVID made it worse. It made the problem worse. And so we need to continue to focus on it because a home is the number one thing that impacts the people.
Yep.
And so, again, reach out to us, talk to us, get engaged with Habitat. We're always looking for volunteers on our construction site, so sign up to volunteer. If you're compelled to give, please know there is no gift too small. You can sign up to be a monthly donor, give an individual gift, attend our events. If you're a golfer, we have a golf tournament coming up. I mean, there's ways to get involved, or even just start asking the question, how can I do more? And take the step to do it.
Yeah. So as I look out at the scenario that's unfolding in front of us, I see history in a way repeating itself where permits being pulled for new development fell off a cliff down 20% year on year. And so in all those years where we underbuilt, we slowly got up to still underbuilding level, we've now fallen back down in anticipated inventory being delivered to the market. Cost of development, cost of building, cost of construction, cost of life in general is increasing, and it looks bleak for a lot of people. Where do you see hope in housing, in Habitat for Humanity, and in the city of Las Vegas? Where are you seeing hope for the future that people can attach to and believe that the future is going to be bright? What is the light that you're witnessing that you can share with other people?
So in general, like I said, that housing is part of the conversation. You see it on the news, you see it on social media, you see it being talked about. The minute it stops being talked about is when you got to be afraid. Because then people are no longer thinking about it. It's no longer top of mind. So that gives me hope. Because like I said, 6 years ago, no one was talking about homeownership. No one was talking about housing crisis. So the fact that it's being amplified is the hope that I have, because we can no longer ignore it. And the fact that it's not just us talking about it, it is the elected officials, it is the governor, it is, the Congress talking about it. So we're there. For Habitat, one of the things you didn't start with was that you are the new board chair of Habitat for Humanity. So on the board side, you are leading the effort with them in partnership with me. To me, that is, for so many reasons, exciting. New energy, someone that's passionate about housing, understands the problems with housing. But what we're doing is we're assembling a team that we haven't had before. On the board side, the advocates, the developers, the architects. So what I find the greatest hope for at Habitat right now is one of the things you didn't touch on when we did the intros is you're the new board chair, board president for Habitat for Humanity. And for me, that gives me so much hope because under your leadership and vision, which is a bold one, which I appreciate because you give me the push that I need. But as a team, I'm confident that we can execute this. We have brought on new energy on the board, from developers to architects, casino, entrepreneurs, different skill sets and energy that we haven't had, and people that are so deeply invested in this community that want to create the change. And so to have that energy around us and aligned with us right now in this moment gives me the most hope. Because for a little while, we felt stagnant. And so now to have that new energy and push, and for me to have people that have seen big things happen, that are more open to risk, more open to be open and transparent, and be the leader in housing, is what I think is going to propel us forward. So today we're building 5 homes, but I'm extremely hopeful in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll be building 50. Because there's other communities that are doing it. And why does Habitat need to be last?
We will be. We will be. I think one of the things that people are experiencing right now in the world is all of the problems seem enormous. Housing affordability, huge issue. How do I attend to housing affordability? Income inequality, the climate, you name it, it's these massive global issues. War in the Middle East. It's something that how do I as an individual manage it? How do I make an impact? How do I change the course of what everyone is feeling, what I'm feeling? What do I do? And I think the most hope lies in individual action and making sure that you focus on your day, your life, your family, and what you can do for your community. So if you're able to go to a Habitat build, if you're able to give $5, if you're able to make a prayer, whatever it is, focus your intent on the things that you could impact and make a change on. Stop worrying about all the global things because it's consuming you and it's making the world darker. And I think it's taking away our power as individuals. We're saying these problems are too big. They're out of my hands. I cannot make the world a better place. But the truth is you can. Mm-hmm. Each one of us can make the world better by our individual action on the things that we care about most, and the things that we have passion about, and in our own families' lives, in our own lives, in our community's lives. So my statement would be, don't lose hope, have faith in yourself, and have faith in the people around you. And I think that's what we're doing at Habitat for Humanity. We're establishing a very strong team of people that care about the Las Vegas community. They know about it. They understand different arenas that impact housing. And we're putting together that team to make the change happen together. So as an individual, I'm good in this area, you're good in this area, and the team that we're establishing are each great in their own areas. And together we're going to do it. And that's what I think is most special, and that's a lesson I think for everyone is go out and build your team.
Agree.
All right, that wraps it up. Thank you guys.